Hi, so Paul Heselton here. Welcome to English Language A-Level. This is just a little video to welcome you on the course and to show you some of the bits and pieces of what's going on. Congratulations, first of all. You are a person of remarkable taste and intelligence because you have chosen clearly the best A-Level in the entire college. So well done on that. Now, so first of all, if you look on the slideshow here on the left-hand side, here are some questions which we will be grappling with as the course goes on. So let's just take you through these. Where does the word English come from? Not only the word itself, but where does English as a language come from? So clearly we'll be looking at that. So we'll be peering through the mists of time to try and trace back where does English come from historically. Spelling, ugh, that puts a shudder down your spine. Spelling. Why is English spelling so bonkers? Is it bonkers? Is it as irregular as some people do argue? So we look at English spelling, the developments in English spelling over time, and we look at attempts by people and organisations to try and reform English spelling. English as a global language. Well, think about it. Something like a third of the population of the entire planet speaks some form of English. Now, that is incredible because if you go back like 1,000 years, you're going to find only a maximum of only about 2 million people who speak the language. So how come that journey has happened? How has the language become this international phenomenon? Words. We look at how new words enter the language. You know, a word like lol, for example. Where does it come from? What's the process by which new words are created? And how do they get disseminated so that people across the country, across the world, are using that particular word? We look at the relationship between technology and people's language usage. So, for example, the internet, how has it changed people's language usage? Mobile phones, for example. So an interesting debate to be had there about whether these technological developments are improving the language in some way, making the language deteriorate, or actually having no kind of positive or negative effect. We look at the whole thing about whether English is actually deteriorating, because lots of people have a prescriptive viewpoint that English is somehow going down the nick, it's going down the drain. So we get to have a think about why people think that, and we come to our own judgments. We look at accents and dialects across the country. So we look at the differences, say, between Geordie and Teesside and Mackem accents and dialects, and we try and figure out why, historically, those accents and dialects have emerged, and whether regional accents are something that are diminishing over time. So are there becoming fewer and fewer accents over time? We look at occupation. For example, how a lawyer speaks differently to a cleaner, or a soldier speaks differently to an estate agent. And we look at the uses and misuses, I suppose, of jargon and euphemistic uses of language. We travel abroad. We go to America and we look at American English. We see how is it different to British English. And we don't just go to the States. We go to places like Singapore and India and Australia. So we try and figure out, you know, how and why these forms of English have taken hold in these different countries of the world. We look at gender. So we look at to what extent whether you're male or female, or somewhere in between, has an effect on the language that you use. So it's a fascinating course with such a range of different topics that we go through. Let's go through the different units very briefly. Your paper one has the rather snappy title of Language, the Individual and Society. And it's divided into two sections. And the first section is where you are given two texts. It's called Textual Variations and Representations. You're given two texts, a bit similar to what you're seeing there, the Coca-Cola advertisements. And what you have to do is you have to analyse and compare the language use in these two different texts. Now, the two texts are going to be two different modes. Like, for example, one might be a transcript, So it might be a transcriptive speech, and the other could be an electronic mode, or it could be a written text from a newspaper. So the two texts are going to be different modes, and one of them is going to be current day. So in the Coca-Cola electronic one that we've got here, Coke Zone, 100 new names, 100 new reasons to share a Coke. So you've got your current day text, and it could be put next to something that's 100, 150 years ago, like this one on the left. Coca-Cola is a delightful, palatable, and healthful beverage. It relieves fatigue and is indispensable for business and professional men, students, wheelmen, athletes. It relieves mental and physical exhaustion, is the favorite drink for ladies when thirsty and weary and despondent. Sold at fountains, 5 cents, the most refreshing drink in the world, sold in bottles. So an American advert for Coca-Cola, and all sorts of linguistic things that are quite interesting there that gives you clues into society of 100, 150 years ago. You're coming across words like palatable here, which is being used as a kind of really positive word, but palatable today has semantically changed over time. It's not such a strong word. Palatable today means something that you put up with, but isn't necessarily a very strongly positive word. Healthful. I mean, who uses that as an adjective today? Healthful. So we have a different suffix on the end of that adjective. We would say healthy. All sorts of interesting things here also to do with representation as well. The way that sort of males and females are separated out in this advertisement. The males are characterized in terms of the things that they do, so that they are business and professional, or they're students, or they're wheelmen, which I assume is an early form of cyclist or athlete. So they're all people who do things, whereas ladies are represented as being perhaps thirsty and weary and despondent. So obviously gender stereotypes are coming through in these kind of representations. So this is the sort of thing that you're doing in that paper one. You're analysing the language choices that are coming through, and you're making deductions about the society from which they arise. So that's your paper one, section A. Your paper one, section B is called Children's Language Development. And what you get to do is you write an essay question that's about some aspects of children's speech or about children's writing. So you get a transcript in the exam of a child speaking, and you get some data of children's writing, and you get some kind of contentious statement, some controversial statement that you're given, and that you have to deconstruct it and evaluate whether overall you agree or disagree with the topic. So that is a great area of the course. We do that in the second year, and for many of our students, that's like the best part of the entire course. What else have we got? We have got paper two. We've got paper two. Paper two is called Language Diversity and Change. So in that section A, you're going to be studying about the diverse forms of the English language. And in that, you're looking at things like language and gender, language and social class. You're looking at accents and dialects. You're looking at language and age. So it's a really interesting area. It's a little bit like sociology, that part of the course. Another aspect of it is that you're looking at language change. So you're looking at how and why the English language has changed over time, which is fascinating because you're going back from Old English through into Middle English, early modern English to current day English, and you're tracing how and why those changes have taken place. And you're also looking at English as an international phenomenon. So you're looking at global forms of English. So that's your section A. It's called Diversity and Change. When you get into section B, then you're embroiled in journalism, because this bit is called Language Discourses. And what you get to do is you analyse and compare a couple of articles, a couple of journalistic articles in which they are presenting information about language, linguistic topics. So you write an analytical essay on these articles that you've never seen before, and then in the final bit, you get to write your own piece of journalism. So kind of creative writing, journalistic writing that you do in the exam. So to recap so far in terms of exams, you have 2 exams, And in those exams, you will be asked to do the following sorts of things: comparing and analysing older and current day texts, analysing children's writing and children's speech. You'll be looking at different varieties of English across the UK. You'll be examining how English has changed over time, and you'll be analysing pieces of journalism. So you'll be writing essays, but you'll also be producing pieces of journalism. Now, that's not all, because that's 80% of the qualification. But then you've got your good old NEA. We're not allowed to call it coursework anymore. We're shifting the label for it. It's now called non-exam assessment. So your NEA is 20% of the qualification, and it's split into two. The first part of it is called original writing. So on this, you're going to be doing 2 bits of original writing in the first year. You're going to be writing a piece of narrative fiction. We're going to be studying some short stories, and then you're going to be writing your own short story, and then writing a commentary about the choices that you've made. So that's a fantastic area of the course, and we get in a professional novelist who comes in and does a workshop with the students. So we do that in the first term. We also do a second piece of original writing, which is persuasive writing, where we look at a whole load of pieces of journalism, and you get to write your own opinion article on a subject of your own choice. So for students who are really fired up by creative writing and by journalism, that first part of the NEA is really good. The second part of the NEA is fabulous as well. This is called language investigation, and this is where you choose a linguistic topic that interests you. So it could be anything. Maybe for example, you've got 2 3-year-old cousins, and you want to record the conversations they're having between themselves, and you want to analyse their language choices with reference to some of the theories that you've learnt about in your paper 1. So you can do that. Maybe you're crazy about football and football commentaries. So maybe you want to be looking at commentary of let's say the 1966 England beating Germany in the World Cup final. So maybe you're wanting to take aspects of that football commentary and to compare it with a football commentary recently, to look at how language has changed and how commentators are using language in different ways in the year 2020 as opposed to 1966. They're just a couple of examples. You can literally do anything. So it's a great part of the course, and you've got complete control over it. It's a bit like doing a dissertation, albeit a quite short one because it's only 2,000 words. So we do that in the second year. So there's your NEA. Now then, have you been paying attention, I wonder? Is your memory better than that of a goldfish? We shall find out. So do the answers to these questions. Number 1, English language at QE follows which exam board? I'm not even sure I've told you that. Number 2, what percentage of the assessment is NEA? 3, in paper 1, section A, how are the 2 given texts different? 4, what is the name of paper 1, section B? 5, paper 2, section A gets you to write an essay from a choice of which 2 topics? 6, what 2 tasks do students do in paper 2, section B? Number 7, in the original writing NEA, what 2 different purposes are you asked to write? And then finally, what is the expected word count for the language investigation? Okay, so pause the video there, scribble down your answers, and see if you've got these things right. Okay, so here are the answers. 1, AQA. Number 2, 20%. Number 3, they're from different time scales, and they're different modes as well. Number 4, children's language development. Number 5, language diversity or language change. Okay, number 6 is analysing 2 journalistic articles and then writing your own journalistic article. 2 different purposes: writing to entertain, because you're writing a short story, and writing to persuade, because you're doing a piece of journalism. And then last, but by no means least, 2,000 words is the word count for the language investigation. How did you do, I wonder? Okay, let's move on. 5 steps to success in English language A-level. Okay, so here we go. These are things that we really, really must have you doing. Number 1, you've got to be showing up every day. You've got to be attending every lesson. Now, at the beginning, of course, you're going to be full of enthusiasm and curiosity, and without question, you're going to be here. But it's a question of when you get into the dark, deep days of like December, and for some reason your psychology lesson has been cancelled in the morning, and you've only got an hour of English in the afternoon, and you're coming in from Bishop Auckland, right? These are the times where sometimes students are struggling. You need to be attending every single lesson. There is a really strong correlation between success and strong attendance. So, as Woody Allen there says, 80% of success is just showing up. Number 2, if you do have a notified absence, like for example, you're signed off by the doctor, like you are completely ill, then there are 2 things that you need to do. 1, you immediately let the college know. They will need to know before 10 o'clock. But secondly, you need to let your teacher know as well. And obviously, it's your responsibility, once you're better, and well, it's your responsibility to find out and to complete the missed work. The work will always be there for you. It'll be on Google Classroom. So the work will always be visible to you. So once you're better and well, it's entirely up to you to be catching up with the work. So you can communicate with me on that email address here. Your teacher, it will always be an email address like that. So the name of the teacher at g.qeliz.ac.uk. So contact us night or day. Well, maybe not night, but contact us on that email address. Number 3, be punctual and work ready at the start of every lesson. Yes, this means being there at exactly, let's say 9 o'clock, your lesson starts, being there at 9 o'clock rather than 5 past 9 or 10 past 9. So being absolutely punctual and having your complete folder of work, your booklet, if your teacher is giving you a booklet, and your AQA textbook. Take this with you everywhere you go for the next 2 years. I certainly do. Yes, if I'm going shopping, for example, I always take my AQA textbook with me. This is a really good textbook. I've taught from many textbooks over the years, and this is probably the best that I've used so far. It's so thorough and comprehensive. It's really, really good. So do make sure that you are bringing it to every lesson. I know it weighs 23 kilos, right? But just think of it a kind of exercise technique. By hulking it around, just think how physically fit you're going to be at the end of 2 years. Okay, and make sure you're properly prepared with, paper and pens and highlighters. So be work ready. Now then, this is an important one. Spend at least 4 or 5 hours outside lessons per week on English language independent work. Now, this takes a bit of time to get your head around because you're coming from school where you've had lessons every single session is a lesson from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3:30. And you're coming here and maybe you only have 3 out of the 5 lessons in a day where you're actually being taught. That's been purposefully done in order for you to crack on with your independent work. So you're going to get 5 hours of English language per week. On top of that, you need to be doing 4 or 5 hours independent work on English per week. Okay, so you need to get into a routine. I know we are not checking on you on your freeze. So you can basically go anywhere and do anything in your freeze. We're not saying to you, you need to be sitting in the library doing your work. Our main concern is that you are doing your work. Okay. So make sure that you get into a good routine about this. I mean, a college like this is a halfway house between a school and a university. So it has some of the freedoms that you'd expect to have in sort of higher education going on into university. But it's also got some of the intensity and the kind of rules that you'd expect to find in a school. So it's like a perfect medium between the two. Was it Thomas Edison who said genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration? He was a very sweaty man, right? He means that, it's not about you just being a clever person and therefore being able to do well in English. It's about you putting in the sweaty work. Okay, so it's a great quotation to remember. Let's do the final one here. When you get into lessons, obviously you need to be working very positively and articulately. We will be requiring you to work alongside different sorts of students. This is not the kind of course where you're going to be sitting in one desk, in one chair for the entire 2 years, talking just with the student that's next to you. We don't do that. We consciously mix you around. It's very, very important that we build up your social skills and that we make you ready for the world of work, where you're going to be sitting alongside and working alongside all sorts of different people. So, obviously, English is largely about reading and writing, but it's also about your speaking and listening skills. So, you need to be as proactive as possible. Okay. So that's it. Those were my steps to success in English Language A-Level. Here's a bit of a memory test. Write down those 5 steps to success in English Language A-Level. Right, I'm going to sign off there. It's been a pleasure talking to you this very first time. And you believe me, you really are going to enjoy this course and get a lot out of it. So well done. You've chosen a great course. Off we go.